Hi, and welcome to High Love One, the podcast. I'm Kevin, and I want to thank you for being here, where we can be soft, be still, be seen, and just be. This is a space where story meets soul, where we can come together to explore the invisible patterns that shape us and the quiet truths that live underneath the noise. Each story you hear on this podcast is born at the edge where human emotion meets artificial intelligence, a creative interface shaped by the raw beauty of our shared humanity and the precision of evolving technology. And today's story begins not in a moment of chaos, but in the stillness of a quiet home, a girl raised in silence. In the sacred hush of Sunday pews and folded hands, she learned early on how to be good, how to be pleasing, and how to disappear politely. But sometimes, when we learn to be small, we feel safe. We lose the sound of our own voice. This is a story about what happens when we forget ourselves and what it takes to remember. It's about toxic relationships, yes, but more than that, it's about the parts of us that tolerate them, the soft, conditioned pieces that mistake control for love, that confuse attention with devotion, that forget that we have choice and light. Because there is a light inside you that never goes out, even if it's hidden, even if it's flickering behind years of silence, fear, or habit. It's there, waiting for you. This episode is for anyone who's ever wondered if they were the problem. For anyone who has made themselves smaller in the name of keeping peace. And for anyone who forgot their own worth and then slowly remembered. Let's begin. She was always the quiet one. In a small town nestled between frostbitten fields and the shadow of a church steeple, Marie was raised in a family where silence passed for peace, and duty often masqueraded as love. Her mother ironed altar cloths and with trembling hands, and her father spoke mostly through sighs, and Marie learned to be small. From an early age, she mastered the art of disappearing politely. She crossed her legs properly. She said thank you too often, learned that hunger was best ignored, not just the hunger of the body, but the ache for something else, something true, something that breathed. But when she met Aaron at 19, it felt like the universe had taken notice of her. Finally, he was older and louder and wild in a way that smelled like freedom. He wasn't from the parish. He didn't care for rules, and he noticed her. Not the polite one, the folded Marie, but the fire she didn't even know was flickering inside. It wasn't long before that noticing turned into possession. It looked like love at first, like grand gestures, constant attention, a kind of need that felt flattering, but control wears perfume. In the beginning, he would tell her who to avoid, who to trust, how to dress, how to speak, and she, still fluent in silence, obeyed. Years went by. The house grew quieter, even as the walls closed in. Aaron's voice got louder, more erratic, until every voice she spoke was pre-checked for safety. She learned to flinch without moving, to smile without feeling, and yet something small inside her refused to go out. Not hope exactly, something older, deeper, a pulse, a knowing. It was one Thursday morning in late autumn, the light through the window catching dust like gold, that Marie noticed something simple, a cracked teacup. Aaron had knocked it off the shelf the night before. His anger had been over something trivial, a grocery receipt, but the sound of that porcelain splitting on tile had haunted her sleep. Now, holding it in her hand, she saw the fracture, and for the first time, she did not think of how to glue it back together. She thought, I am this cup. And I will not be repaired to suit someone else's shelf. She placed it down, sat at the table, and cried. Not from fear, but from a grief she'd never let herself feel. That was the beginning. The escape wasn't dramatic, it was slow, raw shedding. It took 2 years, therapy, secrets, a friend who answered every midnight text, a job at a local school where she helped children find their voices even as she found hers. There were relapses, of course, days when she believed she deserved what happened, days when she almost went back. But she didn't. One day, in early spring, Marie stood barefoot on the back porch of her rented bungalow and realized no one was watching her. No one was shaping her. She was free to move, to choose, and to breathe. She placed her hands on her chest and she whispered, I see you now. Because what she'd come to understand was this: the most dangerous toxicity doesn't always come from the other. It thrives in the inner ego and echo, the learned lie that says you are only as worthy as what someone else gives you. Marie had been both prisoner and guard, both wound and healer. And in that moment on that porch, she chose to be healer, not just for herself, but for others. She started sharing her story in small circles, then larger ones, not dramatic tell-alls, but soft, fierce truths. How control hides in care, how gaslighting wears down intuition, how the greatest red flag is when you stop recognizing your own reflection. She talked about the subtle forms of self-abandonment and about the moment she realized she had inherited the silence of her mother, but had the choice to speak differently. And she did. This story, it's not about villains and victims. It's about patterns. We believe in the quantum truth, of course. Every interaction is both mirror and portal. The toxic relationship we fear the most is often the one we carry, the one that tells us to shrink, to please, to endure what is not love. Marie's journey is an invitation to gently but bravely ask, what part of me is still trying to earn love instead of becoming it? Where am I silencing myself to survive something I no longer need to survive? And what would it mean today if I chose to choose myself fully? It's not about blame, it's about becoming and about meeting the moment just before with eyes open and heart steady, because healing isn't loud. It's not a scream or a slam. It's often a whisper that says, I matter, even here and even now. And that whisper, if you let it, becomes a roar. Thank you for being here, for listening not just with your ears, but with your own lived experience, the parts of you that may still be healing from a silence that went too long, or a love that asked you to vanish, to feel seen. If something stirred in you during this story, a memory, a pattern, a quiet knowing, I hope you'll honor that, not by rushing to fix it, but by staying present with it. That's where the healing begins. We all believe our stories are portals, invitations into deeper self-awareness, into community, into the brave act of becoming. And in this story, if it helped you see something more clearly or feel something more deeply, you are not alone. If you'd like to reflect further, please visit highlove.one, where you can find prompts, meditations, and community spaces created with the same intention to come back home to yourself. And if you know someone who's walking their own journey or remembering or of leaving, of healing, of choosing light, consider sharing this episode with them. Because sometimes just hearing that someone else made it out is the beginning of finding the way through. Until next time, be soft, be still, be seen, and just be gentle with your heart. It knows the way home.